The mists of Hellion 9 parted as the research vessel descended through its perpetually clouded atmosphere. Dr. Marcus Jensen stood at the observation deck, his weathered hands pressed against the reinforced glass. 20 years of xenobiology research hadn't prepared him for what awaited below the enigmatic Viridians, a species that had successfully avoided meaningful contact with the Galactic Alliance for centuries. "Final approach, Doctor," announced Captain Nyota from the bridge. "Atmospheric conditions are within acceptable parameters." Marcus nodded, double-checking the environmental suit seals. The Viridians were known for their bioluminescent cities hidden within the planet's vast crystal forests, but it was what lurked in those forests that truly fascinated him, the shadow mist behemoth, a creature of such legendary status that most believed it to be merely a myth. The ship touched down in a clearing surrounded by towering crystal formations that pulsed with an inner light. Marcus stepped onto the planet's surface, his boots sinking slightly into the phosphorescent moss. The air, even through his filtration system, carried the sweet scent of alien spores. "Remember the protocol," Captain Nyota's voice crackled through his comm. "First contact only, no unnecessary risks." Marcus smiled beneath his helmet. "When have I ever taken unnecessary risks?" "Would you like that list chronologically or alphabetically?" she replied dryly. As he ventured deeper into the crystal forest, his sensors detected movement. The Viridians emerged from what appeared to be solid crystal, their bodies translucent and flowing like living glass, with cores of pulsing light that shifted through various colors. Their leader, distinguishable by the complex patterns of light flowing through their form, approached Marcus. "I am Xylvex," they communicated through a series of light pulses that Marcus's translator converted. "You are either very brave or very foolish to enter our realm, Skywalker." "Dr. Marcus Jensen," he responded, bowing slightly. "I come seeking knowledge and understanding." A younger Viridian, their light patterns more chaotic and intense, moved forward. "You come seeking the behemoth," they accused, "like all the others." "Silence, Kyrane," Xylvex commanded, their lights dimming momentarily. "Though my child speaks out of turn, they speak truth. Why do you really come, Marcus Jensen?" Before he could answer, a sound like thunder rolled through the crystal forest. The Viridian's light patterns shifted to deep red fear. Marcus turned slowly toward the sound, his scientific curiosity overriding his survival instincts. Through the mist emerged a creature that defied description. It moved like liquid shadow between the crystal trees, its body seeming to both absorb and emit light. Multiple eyes, glowing with ancient intelligence, fixed upon the gathering. The Viridians retreated into their crystal shelters, all except Kyrane, who remained frozen in place. Time seemed to slow as Marcus processed his options. The creature, the legendary behemoth, was advancing toward Kyrane. Without conscious thought, Marcus moved forward, placing himself between the young Viridian and the creature. He removed his helmet, ignoring the warning alarms from his suit. "Hello, beautiful," he whispered, meeting those ancient eyes directly. "You're not here to hurt anyone, are you? You're curious just like me." The behemoth stopped, its form rippling like dark water. It lowered its massive head, bringing those eyes level with Marcus's. He felt something brush against his mind, not thoughts exactly, but impressions, emotions, curiosity meeting curiosity. "By the eternal light," Kyrane breathed, their pattern shifting to a color Marcus's translator couldn't interpret. "It responds to you." Marcus slowly raised his hand, palm up, toward the creature. The behemoth pressed its snout cool and smooth like polished obsidian against his palm. A connection formed, images flooding Marcus's mind. Crystal forests, countless cycles of growth and change, loneliness, and an ancient stewardship of this world that predated even the Viridians. "Impossible," Xylvex emerged from their shelter, lights pulsing rapidly. "The behemoth has guarded our realm since the first light. None have ever." "Sometimes," Marcus said softly, as the creature leaned into his touch, "all it takes is seeing past our fears to recognize a kindred spirit." The Viridians gathered around them, their light patterns synchronizing in what Marcus would later learn was their expression of profound awe. Kyrane approached cautiously. their own patterns shifting to match the peaceful blues and greens now flowing through the behemoth's form. Perhaps, Zylvex conceded, we have more to learn from you than you from us, Marcus Jensen. The behemoth rumbled contentedly, its form settling into a more solid state as it accepted the presence of the gathered beings. Marcus smiled, knowing that this moment would change everything, not just for xenobiology, but for the understanding between species across the galaxy. What none of them realized was that this peaceful moment was about to be shattered by forces already en route to Hellion 9, forces that would test the newfound trust between human, Viridian, and Behemoth in ways none could imagine. Dawn broke over Hellion 9 in ribbons of purple and silver light filtering through the crystal canopy. Marcus sat cross-legged on the phosphorescent moss. The shadow mist behemoth curled around him like a living wall of darkness and starlight. Chiron watched from nearby, their crystalline form shimmering with patterns of fascination and lingering uncertainty. "You should be dead," they stated, moving closer with fluid grace. "Every legend speaks of the behemoth's wrath, yet here you sit, treating it like a companion." Marcus smiled, running his hand along the creature's smooth hide. "Legends often say more about those who tell them than those they're about. Your people feared what you didn't understand, so that's what the legends reflected." The behemoth stirred, its multiple eyes opening to regard Chiron with gentle curiosity. The young Viridian's light patterns flickered rapidly, their equivalent of a startled heartbeat, but they didn't retreat. "May I?" they asked, extending a crystalline hand toward the creature. "Of course," Marcus nodded. "Just remember respect, not fear." Chiron's touch met the behemoth's hide, and their light patterns suddenly burst into brilliant colors. "The memories," they gasped. "I can see, feel so much history." "The behemoth is a guardian," Marcus explained, sharing what he'd learned through his own connection. "It's been protecting this world since before your people emerged from the crystal depths. It's not a monster, it's a caretaker." Their moment of understanding was interrupted by urgent pulses of light from the Viridian settlement. Zylvex emerged from a crystal spire, their pattern displaying warning colors. "Ships approach," they announced. "Not like yours, Marcus Jensen. These burn with aggressive intent." Marcus activated his comm unit. "Captain Nyota, are you tracking incoming vessels?" "Affirmative," her voice crackled with concern. "3 heavy cruisers, corporate signatures, looks like Nova Extraction Corporation. They're not responding to hails." Marcus's jaw tightened. Nova Extraction was notorious for stripping worlds of valuable resources, particularly the kind of rare crystals that made up Hellion 9's forests. The Galactic Alliance had been trying to shut down their illegal operations for years. "We need to prepare," he started, but Chiron interrupted. "Our warriors will defend the Crystal Heart," they declared, their form solidifying into sharper edges of Viridian battle stance. "We have repelled invaders before." "Not like these," Marcus warned. "They'll have advanced weapons, mining equipment that could shatter your entire forest." He turned to Zylvex. "Your people need to evacuate to the deeper crystal caverns." The behemoth rose to its full height, its form rippling with patterns that seemed to mirror the Viridian's warning lights. Through their connection, Marcus felt its fierce protectiveness of this world and its inhabitants. "No," Chiron's pattern shifted to one of determination. "We will not hide, but perhaps we can fight differently this time." They turned to Marcus. "You've shown us that old fears can be overcome, that understanding can bridge divides. The behemoth is not our enemy, it could be our greatest ally." Zylvex moved forward, their own patterns showing surprise at their child's words. "You suggest we fight alongside the Ancient One." "I suggest we trust," Chiron replied, "as Marcus trusted and as the behemoth trusted in return." The behemoth rumbled its approval, and Marcus felt its strategy forming in his mind. The creature knew every aspect of this world, every crystal formation, every hidden passage. Its centuries of guardianship had given it an understanding of the land that no invader could match. "Your warriors know how to fight in the crystal forest," Marcus said, a plan taking shape. The behemoth knows how to use the land itself as a weapon, and I know Nova Extraction's tactics. Together, we might have a chance. Xylvex's patterns swirled in contemplation before settling into resolved brilliance. For centuries, we hid from the behemoth, believing it our greatest threat. Now we stand with it against a true enemy. They turned to Marcus. Guide us, Skywalker. Show us how to unite our strengths. As the distant ships descended through Hellion 9's atmosphere, Marcus, the Viridians, and the behemoth prepared for battle. The creature's multiple eyes gleamed with ancient wisdom, while Cheiron's form pulsed with newfound courage. Together, they would protect their world, not through fear or force alone, but through an alliance born of understanding and trust. The crystal forest resonated with tension as Nova Extraction's ships drew closer. But in the face of this threat, old enemies had become allies, and ancient fears had transformed into powerful bonds. The real battle was about to begin, and it would test not just their strength, but the very foundation of trust they had built. The crystal forest trembled as Nova Extraction's ships descended through the misty atmosphere. Marcus watched from a hidden outcropping as the first mining crews emerged, their heavy equipment designed to shatter and harvest the precious crystal formations. Through his connection with the behemoth, he felt the creature's deep anger at this violation of its ancient home. They begin their destruction, Cheiron observed, their crystalline form dimmed to near invisibility among the natural formations. 3 drilling points. They seek the heart crystal. Marcus nodded grimly. The heart crystal, a massive formation at the center of the forest that powered the entire ecosystem, would be irresistible to Nova Extraction. What they didn't know was that removing it would destroy not just the forest, but the entire planet's delicate balance. Captain Nyota's voice crackled through his calm. Marcus, I've contacted Galactic Alliance Command. Help is coming, but they're at least 6 hours out. We need to hold them off until then. Copy that, Marcus replied softly. We're ready. The plan was risky, but it played to everyone's strengths. The Viridian warriors, led by Cheiron, had merged with the crystal formations around the Nova Extraction teams. The behemoth waited in the shadows, its form rippling with barely contained energy. Marcus would try diplomacy first, not because he expected it to work, but because what followed would work better if they tried peace first. He emerged from cover, hands raised. This is a protected world under Galactic Alliance jurisdiction, he announced to the nearest team. Nova Extraction has no authority here. The team leader, a burly woman with cybernetic enhancements visible along her jaw, laughed. Protected? We don't see any protection, just some primitive crystal formations and local wildlife. She gestured to her crew. Continue setup. If this scientist wants to file a complaint, he can do it from our brig. 2 security officers moved toward Marcus, their weapons charged. Before they could reach him, the crystal formations around them came alive. Viridian warriors emerged like living glass, their forms hardened into razor-sharp edges. The security officers opened fire, but their energy weapons passed harmlessly through the crystalline beings. Local wildlife? Marcus smiled as the behemoth rose from the mists behind him, its massive form blocking out the light. Not quite. Chaos erupted across all 3 drilling sites. The behemoth moved like living shadow between the crystal spires, its multiple eyes glowing with ancient power as it disabled mining equipment with precise strikes. The Viridian warriors used their ability to merge with and emerge from crystal formations to confuse and disorient the invaders. Marcus ran between positions, coordinating the defense. Through his connection with the behemoth, he could sense the entire battlefield, every Nova Extraction soldier, every Viridian warrior, every piece of equipment threatening their world. The heart crystal is still vulnerable, Cheiron warned, emerging beside him. They have a 4th team moving underground. Marcus felt the behemoth's alarm through their link. The creature had protected the heart crystal for centuries. It wouldn't fail now. Show me, he commanded. Cheiron led him to a crystal formation that spiraled down into the planet's depths. As they descended, the crystals pulsed with increasing energy. The heart crystal's chamber glowed with blinding intensity, its power visibly flowing through veins that spread throughout the entire forest. 4 Nova extraction engineers were setting charges around its base. Their leader, a cold-eyed man with premium cybernetic upgrades, turned as Marcus and Kyrene entered. "Don't be heroes," he warned, holding up a detonator. "This much crystal, one blast would start a chain reaction through the entire forest." "You don't understand what you're doing," Marcus said, feeling the behemoth's presence moving through the crystal tunnels toward them. "The heart crystal doesn't just power the forest, it stabilizes the entire planet. Remove it, and you'll trigger a collapse that will destroy everything, including your ships." The engineer's cybernetic eyes flickered as he processed this. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Marcus pressed. "Why do you think the Galactic Alliance marked this world as protected? Why do you think the Veridians live in harmony with the crystal formations instead of mining them themselves?" Doubt crept into the engineer's expression, but his finger remained on the detonator. Above them, the sounds of battle echoed through the crystal chambers. The behemoth's presence grew stronger, closer. Kyrene stepped forward, their form glowing with the same frequency as the heart crystal. "Our world lives through this crystal. Its power flows through us, through the behemoth, through every living thing on Hellion 9. Destroy it and you destroy yourself." The chamber darkened as the behemoth emerged from the crystal walls, its form more magnificent and terrifying than ever before. In this sacred space, so close to the heart crystal's power, it seemed to embody the very soul of the planet. The engineer's hand trembled on the detonator. We were never told." "You were told what Nova Extraction wanted you to know," Marcus said softly. "But now you see the truth. Make the right choice." Time seemed to freeze as the engineer looked between the detonator, the heart crystal, and the behemoth's ancient eyes. Above them, the battle for Hellion 9 raged on. But in this chamber, at this moment, everything hinged on one person's capacity to understand and change. The fate of an entire world hung in the balance, waiting for wisdom to overcome greed. The detonator clattered to the crystal floor as the engineer lowered his hands. "Stand down," he commanded into his comm unit, his cybernetic eyes fixed on the pulsing heart crystal. "All teams cease operation immediately." Marcus felt the behemoth's approval ripple through their mental connection. Above them, the sounds of conflict began to fade as Nova extraction forces received the order. Kyrene's form brightened with relief, their crystalline structure resonating with the heart crystal's steady pulse. "You've made the right choice," Marcus said, carefully retrieving the detonator. "But this isn't over. Nova extraction won't simply abandon their plans." "They already have," Captain Nyota's voice crackled through his comm. 3 Galactic Alliance warships just dropped out of hyperspace. Nova Extraction's ships are powering down their weapons and preparing for boarding. The engineer's shoulders slumped. "They never told us what this place really was. Just another resource extraction," they said. "Simple operation." He looked around the chamber with new eyes. "But this is something else entirely." The behemoth moved closer, its multiple eyes studying the human with ancient wisdom. Through their connection, Marcus felt not anger, but a deep sadness for those who would destroy without understanding. The creature had witnessed countless cycles of growth and decay, had seen civilizations rise and fall, yet still maintained hope for understanding. "Your people can learn," Kyrene said, approaching the engineer. "As we learned. For centuries, we feared the behemoth, seeing only a monster where a guardian stood. It took Marcus to show us the truth that fear blinds us to understanding." Above them, Veridian warriors began emerging from the crystal walls, their forms glowing with victory colors. Xylvex appeared at the chamber entrance, their patterns showing both relief and authority. "The surface is secured," they announced. "The invaders are being detained by your alliance forces." They turned to the engineer. "Your leaders will face justice for their actions, but you chose wisdom in the end. That choice matters." Marcus felt a subtle shift in the chamber's energy. The heart crystal's pulse strengthened, sending waves of light through the crystalline networks that connected all of Hellion 9. The behemoth responded, its form becoming more luminous, more integrated with the crystal structures around it. "Something's happening," he breathed. watching as the light patterns began to synchronize between the heart crystal, the behemoth, and the Viridians. Cheiron's form vibrated with excitement. The awakening! The old stories speak of it, when all life on Hellion 9 would pulse as one, sharing understanding across all barriers. The light grew more intense, and Marcus felt his connection with the behemoth deepen. Suddenly, he could sense not just the creature's thoughts and feelings, but the entire crystal network, every viridian, every formation, every pulse of energy that made this world unique. The engineer gasped beside him, clearly experiencing the same phenomenon. "This is what we would have destroyed," the engineer whispered, cybernetic eyes wide with wonder. "All this life, this connection." "The heart crystal doesn't just power our world," Zylvex explained, their own form part of the growing harmony. "It connects all conscious beings who open themselves to understanding. For too long, we remained separate Viridians in our crystal cities, the behemoth in its solitary guardianship. But now we see the truth," Cheiron finished. "We are all part of the same network, the same story, even you, Marcus Jensen, and yes, even those who came to destroy. The potential for connection exists in all." The behemoth moved to the center of the chamber, its form now a perfect blend of shadow and light. Through their enhanced connection, Marcus understood its ancient purpose with new clarity. It wasn't just a guardian of the forest or the heart crystal. It was a guardian of understanding itself, waiting through the ages for the moment when different species could finally see beyond their fears and limitations. As the light began to fade to more normal levels, Marcus looked at the assembled beings, Viridian, human, and the magnificent behemoth, and saw the change in all of them. The engineer's cybernetic eyes now glowed with the same frequency as the crystal formations. The Viridian's patterns had gained new complexity, incorporating shadows that mimicked the behemoth's form. And the behemoth itself seemed more solid, more present, as if its long solitude had finally ended. "The Galactic Alliance will want to study this," he said thoughtfully. "The implications for interspecies communication, for understanding consciousness itself." "They may study," Zylvex declared, "but with respect. Hellion 9 is not a resource to be exploited, but a teacher for those ready to learn." The engineer stood straighter. "I'll testify against Nova extraction. The galaxy needs to know what's really here, not a mining opportunity, but a chance for something greater." As they ascended from the heart crystal's chamber, Marcus felt the behemoth's satisfaction. In facing down those who would destroy this world, they had actually fulfilled its ancient purpose, bringing together different species in true understanding. The crisis had become a catalyst for connection, turning enemies into allies and fear into wisdom. One cycle of Hellion 9's twin moons had passed since the confrontation with Nova extraction. The crystal forest had changed, its formations now pulsing with stronger, more synchronized light patterns that danced like auroras through the mist. Marcus stood at the edge of the newly established Galactic Alliance research outpost, watching as a group of Viridian youth merged and emerged from the crystals, while the behemoth looked on with ancient patience. "They no longer fear approaching the Guardian," Cheiron observed, their crystalline form now permanently touched with shadows that mimicked the behemoth's essence. "The young ones especially have embraced the change." Since the great synchronization in the heart crystal chamber, the boundaries between species had begun to blur in fascinating ways. The Viridians had gained the ability to touch the shadows, while the behemoth could now merge with the crystal formations as they did. Even the humans stationed at the outpost had reported increased sensitivity to the crystal network's energy. "The latest readings from the Alliance scientists are remarkable," Marcus said, checking his data pad. "The heart crystal's influence extends far beyond what we initially thought. Its energy signature has been detected in neighboring star systems." The behemoth, sensing their discussion, approached with its fluid grace. Through their now permanent connection, Marcus felt its satisfaction. The creature had waited eons for this evolution, for the moment when different species would not just coexist, but truly blend their strengths. Zylvex emerged from a nearby crystal spire, their pattern showing the new complexity that all Viridians had developed. "The Council of Elders has reached a decision," they announced. "We will accept the Galactic Alliance's proposal, but with our own conditions." Marcus nodded, having helped draft those conditions. Hellion 9 would become not just a protected world, but a center for interspecies understanding. The heart crystal's unique properties would be studied, not exploited, with the Viridians and the Behemoth as equal partners in all research. The first diplomatic delegation arrives tomorrow, he said. Representatives from 12 different species, all hopping to learn from what we've discovered here. The engineer who had chosen to spare the heart crystal, now known as Director Chen of the newly established Crystal Understanding Initiative, approached their gathering. His cybernetic enhancements now pulsed in harmony with the forest's rhythm. The Nova extraction trial concluded, he reported. The evidence we provided about Hellion 9's true nature swayed the Alliance Council. They've established new protocols for evaluating seemingly uninhabited worlds. No more blind exploitation. The Behemoth's satisfaction deepened, rippling through the crystal network. One by one, lights began appearing in the forest as Viridians emerged to join their gathering. Young and old, warrior and scholar, all bearing the marks of change, the shadow-touched crystal, the deeper understanding. Tell them what else the council decided, Kyrene prompted, their pattern showing excitement. Director Chen smiled. They're calling it the Hellion Protocol. Before any world can be approved for resource extraction, it must be thoroughly studied for signs of conscious networks like what we've found here. The Behemoth's kind of guardianship might not be unique in the galaxy. Marcus felt the truth of those words through his connection to the crystal network. How many other worlds might harbor similar wonders? How many ancient guardians waited to share their wisdom, if only approached with understanding instead of fear? We've only begun to understand what's possible, he said, watching as a young Viridian child fearlessly scrambled up the Behemoth's flank, their combined laughter, one crystalline, one like distant thunder echoing through the forest. When we let go of our preconceptions, when we truly open ourselves to other ways of being, we become more than we were, Xylvex finished. Not human, not Viridian, not solitary guardian, but something new, something greater. The heart crystal's pulse strengthened, sending waves of light through the forest. The assembled beings, human, Viridian, and the majestic Behemoth, stood together as the light washed over them. In that moment, Marcus understood that their story would echo far beyond Hellion 9's crystal forests. They had proven that understanding could overcome fear, that different species could share more than just space. They could share consciousness, purpose, and hope. The crystal forest had become a beacon for a new way of thinking about interspecies relations, about consciousness itself. As the twin moons rose over the crystal spires, casting rainbow refractions through the mist, Marcus felt the Behemoth's ancient satisfaction. After eons of waiting, of guarding not just a forest but a possibility, its purpose had been fulfilled. The age of separation was ending. The age of understanding had begun. The story of Hellion 9 would be told across the galaxy, not as a tale of conflict or conquest, but as proof that when beings choose to reach across the boundaries of species and fear, they can create something entirely new, something wonderful.